Coming up tonight, Scarlet hits the beaches of Bimini. We visit the dock house, and we bring this first of 2 sailings in this back-to-back to a close. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to day 5 of the cruise view from Onboard the Scarlet Lady. Today was Thursday, October 14th, 2021, the 5th and final night of the first of 2 sailings during this series. So that brings us to the halfway point, and so far there's a lot of stuff that we've gotten done, but there's a lot of stuff that we haven't. Certainly wouldn't be able to see everything on board the ship in 5 days. A lot of food that we haven't gotten to. We've definitely taken our time, been a little bit slower with things, taken extra time to enjoy the elements of it, haven't rushed through everything, which is a good thing, so we can truly appreciate everything Scarlet has to offer. But that means that we have a lot more to come in the next 5 days as we continue throughout everything on board this ship. But as this first sailing comes to an end, I did get some statistics on it. All the episodes at this point I've mentioned events with low attendance, low crowd levels, very empty feeling ship, and that is because the total number of guests on board is only 1,188 sailors for this sailing. That is 1,149 from the US, so not a whole lot of international people on board. There are 21 nations represented, most of them by just a single individual, but that 1,188 is just 43%, less than 43% of the total ship capacity of 2,770. And while there's 1,188 guests on board, there are 1,113 crew on board Scarlet at the moment as well. So nearly half of all individuals on this ship are working on the ship. So that is a huge crew to passenger ratio for a cruise ship to have. Typically it is closer to 1 to 4, if even that low. So this is a huge factor in why we're seeing events so low, and that's probably why we're seeing fewer events being held. They do have a lot of crew. That is roughly the number that they are supposed to have, so that is probably going to mean that they're able to operate most things appropriately, and we've seen that the hours have been operating about what you would expect them to normally, just with fewer guests taking part in them. But the events themselves, with fewer guests to attend them, that means you probably can't run as many of the events. A lot of them involve guest interaction, which just does not work if you do not have enough participants to actually participate in those events. And with fewer guests on board, you can't spread it too thin. So that is likely one of the major factors in the lack of activities that we're seeing on board the ship this sailing. I don't know what the numbers will be for tomorrow's boarding group, but I'm sure it will be fairly similar to this sailing. I doubt we're going to see a huge jump in numbers all of a sudden. And with Virgin aiming for roughly 60% is what the rumor has been, about 60-63% capacity through the end of the year, they are not hitting that mark. A lot of the passengers on board the sailing seem to be travel agents. There are a lot of crew member family as well on board. So there are a lot of people with connections and ties and incentives to sail with Virgin versus the normal cruise passengers intending to take a vacation on board her. So hopefully they'll get a lot more demand. We have seen almost everybody is talking about the deals to come back and sail again. It seems like most people have put money down to come back, so I think they're going to get a lot of repeat business, which is good, and hopefully that'll help stir things up and get them closer to that 60% number and eventually the 100% capacity that they'll hopefully be sailing at soon, because they do have a lot of ships coming. Valiant coming very soon, already in their ownership, and Resilient coming right on the heels of her. But the biggest thing today was, of course, the fact that our location was Bimini, Bahamas. And if you're looking at it for the weather, you're looking at it on a map, you often can't find Bimini. Looking up, Alice-town is usually where you'll find Bimini when looking in different systems. And it is a very small island located basically directly out to sea from Miami. not too far away from the home location of Scarlet Lady. And this morning, we were supposed to arrive at 9 a.m. That was our scheduled arrival time. We ended up turning around to get ready to dock at about 7:10 a.m. I had intended to wake up 7:30 and was woken up by the vibrations of the ship making that maneuver. And at 7:20 we were already backing into the pier. 7:30 they were lowering the lines. By 7:40 we were fully docked and alongside the pier. And at that time, looking out across the land, you could see really heavy rain coming. Pretty much the end of the island disappeared off in the distance, and as it made its way closer by 8 a.m. we were hit with that rain. It was just an absolute downpour going over the entire ship, and that meant that you probably did not want to go out, because at 8:40 we did get the all clear. Costa Maya, I mentioned that we heard an announcement over the PA system letting us know that we were allowed to leave the ship. Later that day, I saw a tweet from Virgin that was sent out to notify guests of the last sailing, apologizing for a notice about Costa Maya that went out to them. So I'm guessing they got a push notice we were supposed to get, because today at 8:40 we received a push notification through the app that let us know it was clear to leave the ship and where the locations of the gangway were. Since it was raining, there was no rush of people to get off the ship. I think a lot of people were planning on it. The galley was a bit extra crowded this morning. Definitely a lot more people up earlier than normal and getting ready to go and do something today, likely going to the Bimini Beach Club. But that rain definitely disrupted the plans. Looking at the forecast, there was no rain. Even this morning and last night when I went to bed, I looked, there was like 6% chance of rain, really nothing to worry about. So that big shower really kind of came out of the blue when that occurred this morning, and it definitely disrupted my plans, delayed me getting out there and delayed many others. But it also likely helped to improve some of the flow to get the guests over to the Bimini Beach Club. But I'll talk more about the beach club and everything that was involved in it a little bit later in the lineup, because that was the bulk of what went on today. This evening then, about 9:30, we could hear the lines starting to get lowered and brought into the ship. And about 9:38, the thrusters were on. And it's a very unique pier situation, because it appears that the pier alongside the ship is open underneath, while the pier that was to the stern of the ship looks more like an actual solid object down to the seafloor. And the way that she backs in, she backs right up to that wall, which means you cannot put that excess pressure from the propellers onto that seawall. So she actually had to slide with those thrusters all the way over until she was clear of the actual dock area. And that took just a couple minutes, because by 9:43, about 5 minutes later, they did turn those propellers on and start moving forward to get out of that area. And it was a very quick departure, quick arrival as well this morning, but quicker departure, because while we didn't even start the propellers till 9:43, by 9:50 we were shutting them off and starting to drift, because the pilot boat pulled up alongside, and at 9:55 the pilot left and we took off again to make our way to Miami. This evening our speed is about 7 knots, so pretty slow, much slower than we had been going to the other two destinations on this voyage. And while we are sailing to Miami, there's not too many ships around tonight. It is a weekday. It is Thursday going into Friday. Most ships do leave on a Saturday or Sunday, but there are a couple out there. The Celebrity Constellation was visible the moment that we were leaving Bimini, probably visible from Bimini, just hard to see in the daytime versus at night with those lights on in the dark. But she is anchored out there and waiting to hopefully resume sometime soon. And a little bit later, about midnight tonight, I was able to spot the Allure of the Seas sailing just past the Celebrity Constellation. Tomorrow we should see another one. We may be able to see it sometime soon, because the Freedom of the Seas will be coming to Miami right behind us, most likely from the looks of the radar. So then as for our weather, we had a sunrise at 7:15 a.m. this morning. That was right around the time that we were making that arrival. The rain obviously did make it hard to spot that sunrise. We did get a bit of a rainbow after all that rain fell though, which gave us a beautiful sight even if it wasn't a true sunrise. And then this evening we had a sunset at 6:50 p.m. that was visible from the Bimini Beach Club. It was a very cloudy sky at the time, so it was a little bit hard to spot it. It kind of set into the cloud, and then there was just a narrow gap to see it actually fall on the horizon. And then for conditions, we had a mix of sun and clouds all day. After that rain, first thing in the morning, we didn't really have any sign of rain the rest of the day. There was, I think, one moment where I spotted a little bit of a dark cloud, but nothing too much to worry about. And we had a high of 86 degrees and a low of 79 for tonight. It was nowhere near as hot as it was over in Costa Maya when we were there the other day. The real field definitely did not get into the hundreds. It stayed in the low 90s today, which was a far more comfortable day than we had for most of the days of the sailing up to now. The seas were calm when we were docking this morning, and they're calm again tonight. We've got winds about 12 miles an hour today, so a little bit of a breeze, which of course helped with those sun temperatures today and kept things nice and comfortable out on the beach club. So then for a lineup, it was a private resort day. Those are days that are typically a little bit on the lighter side. There's a lot of resources that have to shift from the ship to the resort to help keep things operating, and that is no different when it comes to Virgin. The Bimini Beach Club is owned or operated in some way. It's affiliated with Resort World's Bimini, but it is also connected with Virgin. And when a Virgin ship is in port, they get priority exclusivity over the entire resort. And I assume that would mean that there was people here that would run it, but today it was all the shipboard people that were operating it. Food came from the ship, the crew came from the ship, everything was managed and operated by the ship people. And that meant a lot of resources had to be transported there. It is not close to the pier. It's not like some of the other ones where the ship docks right at the pier and they unload the goods and they're ready to go. It is a distance down the road to actually reach it. So as I mentioned before, once we docked, it did rain, and in that rain we could see some of the chefs running down the pier to head to the island to get things prepared for us, get the food started. There weren't many guests, but there were some crew members out running through that rain to get there. And for us, we waited till about 10:20 we got off the ship, and it wasn't too bad to get there. We did have to walk down the pier a little bit to get to the back of the ship, and there they had a really nice setup. It was a big loop for the trams and the golf carts to go around with a nice little queue to line up into board, and we were able to walk right up there, get right on the next tram, and take that straight over to the beach club. It was 10:35 that we reached the beach club, so at 10, looking at my photos today, I was just checking it to try and see how long it took. 10:20, I was taking a picture up on deck number 7 of the ship, and by 10:35 I was already taking a picture over in the beach club. So less than 15 minutes total from on board the ship to in the beach club, so it really wasn't too long of a ride to get there, not too much of a hassle, but it was definitely much longer than I expected. The ride was about what I expected, but the distance was longer than I expected. It is not something I would recommend walking. I know I've seen it mentioned many times about the ability to walk there and to explore, but the roads that the tram took to get there just do not seem like the kind of roads you really want to be walking down. Not from a safety perspective of crime, but just from a safety of vehicles driving down the roads and just space and being new to the area and potential dangers there. I would personally recommend always taking those golf carts or the trams. They do not take long. They are always available. It's very easy to get back and forth. So when we reached the club, the moment we got off the tram, the place was incredible. The detail that was put into there, the quality of everything, it's just a whole nother level. It's really hard to explain just how nice the beach club is. Going to Labadee, Coco Cay, we have an idea of what it's like to go to a cruise line's private resort. We know what the possibilities are. Those are, of course, two very different places. Labadee being very old, kind of classic, very rustic island vibe, and Coco Cay being very clean and modern and new. And the beach club, I'm assuming it's about 18 months old because it was supposed to be ready in time for her to sail there from the very beginning. so it's likely about 18 months old at this point, but it still looks brand new, and yet it has an incredibly clean and perfect look to everything. And at the same time, it feels authentic and very natural. So it just has this incredible vibe when you go around it. The first thing that honestly came to my mind was that it seems like something Disney would have created. It would have felt very at home in the animal kingdom. It just has that vibe of feeling natural and old while still being new and clean and modern all at the same time. And as you went around, there's so many details, so many unique elements. They didn't just plop the same chairs everywhere like you normally would see. There were probably at least 20 different styles of chairs all throughout the island, and not just a different chair in each section, but all mixed together. When you looked at the area where you could eat at, there were all different kinds of chairs and tables. Around the pool, you had loungers, you had chairs, you had seats that were in the water, you had swing chairs that were hanging over top of the pool, you had the cabanas, you had the ones that cover up, you had umbrellas everywhere. There were all kinds of different seating options to pick from, and there was plenty of seating throughout the entire island. And when we arrived, the music that played just set the tone. It had a very kind of Virgin vibe to it. It had that energy to it. It felt kind of electronic. It had that, but there was still a little bit of that undertone that just felt natural and kind of fit the environment. It just seemed to work well and kind of bring the atmosphere together. That music played throughout the entire venue, including the beach area. The beach area was massive with tons and tons of chairs. That was where I think most of the guests seemed to go, more so than the actual pool. That was a little more natural with just wide open beach versus the pool area that was more developed and laid out. At the pool, they had a DJ at the one end that played starting, I think it was about 1 o'clock, and went until about 6 o'clock, a little past 6 o'clock. That completely changed the vibe. It made it very high-end party, electronic disco all day long. The music blasted, and it kind of disrupted the island a little bit because it blasted everywhere. It was around one pool, but no matter where you were, you could be on the beach, you could be off the property and still hear that music blasting once the DJ flipped the switch on to their system. And at one point I left the property because there is a nice little area. If you go to the very edge of the property heading back towards the ship, you can go up a little hill and there's a big flat area where you can go look out over the water and see what Scarlet Lady looks like docked. And even out in that area you could hear that DJ music blasting from all the way across on the other side of the resort. So it was definitely very loud once the DJ took over. And that was one of the things that was a little bit of a miss on the resort, was that there was zero quiet areas. No matter where you went, it was loud. There was nowhere you could try to sit and relax or escape some of the chaos because that music was blasting throughout the entire area. But the food, like we've seen on Scarlet, absolutely incredible. They had 2 food areas, one at either end of the resort, but they only used one of them, and they only used half of it at any given time. So they were really limited in the capacity they were actually offering, yet it never backed up. We never had lines. It was running smoothly the whole time, which has always been a big problem with any of these islands, whether it was Coco Cay or Labadee. It seems like they get very crowded, they get chaotic. That never occurred, and unlike the other ones, it was not a giant conveyor belt of food being passed off. It was not a buffet. It was actual food being served, just like on board, custom individualized dishes. You could go up, look at the menu, see the items you wanted, let them know, and they'd grab the dishes, and you'd have individual items on your tray to take. And as I mentioned, that quality was the same quality we've seen on board. It didn't matter it was on the island, because it was still the same ingredients likely that they're using on the ship, which are just of that better quality. And the pork dish that I had for lunch today was absolutely incredible. So much better than any of the barbecues that we've had on any other cruise resort island up to this point. And the way that they laid the resort out, when I got there initially, it looked kind of open. It seemed a little sparse. There weren't a lot of trees, but it still looked just beautiful and perfect. And as the day went on, that really worked to its advantage. There was no shaded area, but there was no real sunny area. Yet the pool was always sunny. The water never went into a shade time, but no matter where you sat, every seat seemed to fade in and out of shade and sun as the palm trees and all the umbrellas would shift their shadows as the sun moved around. So it really kind of kept the environment alive and probably allowed people to stay in that one spot without getting overly hot or cool because the shadows constantly moved. There was always a shade or a sunny area, and there weren't certain areas that everybody had to fight for because every seat was going to shift at some point and multiple points throughout the day. So then there was one item on the lineup that I was looking for today. It was from 2 to 3. It was listed as, it was We Run This Beach. It's supposed to be at the court, which is an open area at the back right corner. When you enter, you go to the right and loop around, and there's a big open area of sand there. Seemed like it would have been on the beach. I looked there first before realizing that it was supposed to be over in the court. And when I went there looking for it, did not find anything. There was nobody there, nothing set up. Didn't look like anything was attempted to be run there. So I'm not sure what happened to that. And when I went to check the app, unfortunately the app did not work. There was some odd issue where the Wi-Fi at the resort matches the ship, so it quickly and automatically connects to the Wi-Fi just like it does on board the ship. Same network ID and everything, so it just auto connects to it, which made it really easy and simple to transition over to the beach club. But whatever it looks for to identify the ship must have been missing, because instead of transitioning to the offline mode, what we used to use at home, it kind of went into a dead mode where it would just error out and not let us use any element of the app. So we could not look at the lineup or any of those other items to see even what kind of food was available back on the ship when we'd return, or whether something changed in the lineup because there are no paper copies to know if perhaps that item was canceled or at a different time. Luckily, I do screenshot the entire lineup every morning, so I had that to reference to make sure I was in the right place. So they did not hold that. Not sure what went on with it. Next week, hopefully they'll hold it. We can see what that one is about. It's listed as adult games on the beach, like a summer camp, so it could be kind of an interesting one to see, and I'm sure it'll, once we're at full capacity, be one of those events that they'll be able to get large teams and actually put on a bit of a show for everyone. So once that didn't occur, what I ended up actually doing was running back to the ship to take some pictures. We ran off the ship. It was kind of ugly out with that rain still around on the other side of the ship as we headed to the resort. So I made a trip back to the ship. When I walked over to get the ride, a golf cart pulled right up, took us right back, private golf cart to the ship. Took once again about 5-7 minutes to get there. Took my pictures, came back, probably about 25 minutes total to go back and forth and take all those pictures and videos of the ship. So it is definitely a convenient thing, and if you want, I never boarded the ship, but if you wanted to, you could easily board the ship, take care of stuff, go have a meal if you want there, and then come back to the resort. And that is important because one of the issues that seemed to occur when we were on the island was with the, not the quality, but with the quantity of food that was available. Early in the day when I ate, it was a full menu, a nice selection of options, but very shortly after that, not long after they opened, they switched to a lighter fare menu, which were fewer options and mainly fruit options, so very lighter selection than what was previously offered. There were ribs with it, but beyond that it was hummus and I think 2 different fruit options. So for us, we stayed the entire day, and that messed a little bit with our dining options. Originally we were expecting food from 11:30 to 5, so I went to check for food at about 4 o'clock and found it was completely changed and limited at that time, but they ended up serving that lighter fare until about 8 o'clock instead of ending at 5 o'clock. So we stayed at the island. 6:30 or 6:50 was that sunset, and just after there at 7 o'clock till 7:30 was the Bimini Bonfire Bonvoyage which was the folk band Onboard performing in front of one of the big bonfires on the beach, the center one, as all three of them were lit, and that remained lit until the end of the night. So they performed about 10 minutes right at the start of that, and then it was time to just explore and see how the resort lit up at night. It was absolutely beautiful at night. Just like we saw that detail during the day, they did not just light the whole place up with spotlights or try to make it all bright and easy to get around. They used tons of accent lights. The sidewalks are lined with little spotlights to shine on the ground so that they don't overly brighten the area, but you can clearly see. The trees are done sporadically to make it visible, but not make it look like every tree is just lit for the sake of lighting them. So it really was incredible how well they thought it through. Even some of the areas had some overhead hanging lights to light them up, so there were some areas that were a bit darker, others that were very bright. In general, it was just a very neat and beautiful environment to walk around as it was lit up with those bonfires burning on the beach, which were pretty much the only light in the main beach area. Some of the palm trees at the very back did have light, but for the most part the beach is a dark area at night. And overall, that resort was designed perfectly. Even though we're only at that 43% capacity, you can tell already that it was designed the right way. They may have issues if they get a bigger ship, but for this size ship, for Scarlet, for her sisters, that resort is going to handle it, I think, with no problem. There's plenty of seating around today, and with full capacity, they'll need that extra seating. But the biggest hurdle is always the dining, and that was not an issue with only about a quarter of the capacity even being used. They could easily have expanded to double the capacity of guests and still not had any issue. The size of it is much smaller than Coco Cay or Labadee, but that kind of added to the charm of it. It was very easy to pick a single location and do anything. You could plop down by the pool, have a lounger there, and go in the pool, but easily walk over to the beach and enjoy the beach as well. Where I feel like at some of the other resorts, they're so large that you can't easily use multiple areas. You have to kind of pick an area and that's your area, or you have to move from one area to another. Where here you can really kind of enjoy the entire resort. You can easily get from one end to the other in a matter of minutes and not feel like it's going to be a whole long walk. And there was no selling of anything. Like we've seen with Virgin, all aboard Scarlet Lady, there's no sales pitch, there's no attempt to sell anything to you. There are no people walking around selling things, there's no special Bimini Beach Club souvenirs being hackled at you when you're walking around the resort. There's no special drink for it. There's no people constantly bombarding you to buy a drink. It is very relaxing. You can get the food you want, you can get the drinks you want, you can do what you want, but nobody's going to force you to do anything or try to get you to do anything. It is up to you what you want to do. You can just relax the day away while you're on there. And that is what we did most of the day until it was time to head back. I came back about 8 o'clock tonight. The all aboard was a little confusing because there were 3 different times listed. The departure I was made aware was 10 o'clock. That's the one that's been listed, and that's what I expected, so all aboard 9:30 makes sense. The app, though, says that all aboard was at 10 o'clock, and another place said all aboard was at 9 o'clock. So 9, 9:30, or 10 o'clock were all listed in different places as what the all aboard time was. And because there's no ship-wide announcement, there was no definitive answer as to the correct one. The 9:30 seems like the most accurate one, except tonight I got back to the ship at about 8 o'clock, and that time it was pretty empty at the beach club. Not many people left. The trams were still going pretty empty, only about maybe 6-8 people per ride, so it was definitely not in high demand to get back at that time. And when I got back here, there was no food on the ship as well. It was burgers and ice cream. Those were the only 2 options. The pizza didn't open till 9, and even the social club diner, which is normally open, was not open. So you couldn't get hot dogs, you couldn't get pizza. Your burgers up on the galley area was the only option that you had, and that was a little disappointing after coming from the beach where the dining was also restricted. So for us, with the bonfire, everything going on, it didn't make sense to make a dinner reservation because you'd need to be back here earlier. You'd have to miss some stuff. But if you don't make a dinner reservation, you are very limited in what dining options you have for dinner. And hopefully that'll change if there's more capacity. I don't know if they're restricting because there's not enough guests. Overall, I've not seen that happen. It seems like they are operating fully to capacity because they are fully crewed for the food side of things. So hopefully we will see a little more expanding of that, a little more options available when guests return, because that is something that is often wanted when you return. We always see after a Labadee or a Coco-Cay, the Windjammer getting filled right away. So when I came back, since there was no food, had to wait a little bit, went at 9 o'clock to the dock for Stargazers, hosted by Abby the hostess, and it was a comical storytelling of astronomy, the stars, and mythology. And of course, with Abby hosting, it was hilarious. Can always trust that when she's involved in one of these events. It was a very nice, soothing, relaxing event after a day sitting out in the beach club with that DJ blasting all day long, to then go and relax in the dock house, stare at the stars, have that very low light and calm, relaxing tone of Abby's voice going through these stories. Was a nice, relaxing way to kind of end the day, and that was listed for 9 to 10. It lasted until about 9:25, and almost the moment it ended was when we departed at 9:30. So we departed at 9:30, which clearly meant that 9:30 all aboard was not correct, or the 10 o'clock listed in the app. So 9 o'clock was likely the correct all aboard time. And that was the night. There wasn't much else going on. There were shops that opened up, though. That was one of the things that was also kind of a little bit of a shock, because this Bimini Day really disrupts a bit of the ship's activity. Since we were in Bimini for the last day of the sailing and we didn't depart till 10 o'clock as scheduled, that meant that originally the stores were not going to open. So if you had sailor loot that you needed to spend before the end of the sailing, as I did, you needed to actually make all your purchases last night on day number 4, because you could not purchase anything on day number 5, and then you're off the ship on day number 6. So I think they heard some of the guest feedback, because that was a bit of a surprise, and a lot of people were posting and happy to see that open. There was a ton of demand because a lot of people appeared to have money they needed to get spent before the end of the sailing, and I had, I think, $15 left that I had to spend. So went down to the shop, got a hat just to use that up, because you don't want to lose it, and it does not transfer from one sailing to the other. Then our daily dine for today, we are going to take a look at the location of Stargazers, the location I watched our departure from, the dock and the dock house. The dock and the dock house, two distinct venues that share a theme and menu but operate independently. As you make your way aft on deck 7 after the social club, you'll find yourself in the dock house. With a Mediterranean vibe, this lounge offers a quiet place to relax and read a book, location for games, and with its own stage, it even acts as one of the locations for showings of Phantom Folktales. It can also gain a bit of energy through a DJ setup if the night calls for it. With a T-shape that leads to the wake at the aft end, the third passageway leads to the dockhouse bar. This secluded bar area offers a variety of drinks while also serving to the rest of the venue. From the bar headed aft leads to a healthy juice bar, as well as one of the grab-and-go snack areas. You can then head through the doors to the venue's outdoor counterpart, the dock. This outdoor space occupies the aft of the ship on deck 7, with the balconies that overlook it sloping slightly outward, giving it a distinct silhouette noticeable from a distance. Above it, the galley back deck can look down on it, while in the athletic club, the net hovers overhead. With beautiful wooden sunbeds, chairs, and bar seating, it's a great place to spend the day while watching the wake behind the ship. With accent lighting for nighttime use, it has a relaxing ambience unlike anywhere else on board. The space isn't all about relaxing under the large, living tree planted in the center, though. It also features its own outdoor bar in the back to serve the dock, a booth on the starboard side to host a DJ at times, and most importantly, a grilling area on the port side where food is prepared fresh to order for the sailors. To avoid the burden of waiters disturbing the relaxation in the dock or the dockhouse, all a guest has to do is raise the flag on the nearest menu sign to request the attention of a nearby waiter. They can then order from the variety of open-fire grilled dishes ranging from the vegan-friendly goat cheese polenta to the hanger steak. With plenty of space to relax, sights to see, and delicious food, the dock and the dockhouse are the perfect way to spend an afternoon at sea. And as I mentioned before, this is the end of the first sailing. We're halfway through this entire 10-night voyage, and the dockhouse is actually an area I've gone to see shows, but I have not eaten anything there yet. I haven't tried any of the food there like some of the other areas. So hopefully we'll be able to change that shortly and give that one a try. But then, moving from our daily dine to our daily venue, we've got a little bit of a twist today. We've got a double daily venue. First place we're going to look at is kind of a part of the dock, and it is the Sidewalk, the area that surrounds the outside of the ship on Deck 7. Ships have long been about the ocean, but over time that connection has gotten lost. New ships have turned inwards. The days of massive promenade decks with lifeboats overhead have faded in favor of the safer and more efficient loading of the lifeboats. This has led some lines to build additional decks over top of the lifeboats to add space to connect to the ocean once again. Onboard Scarlet Lady, the lifeboat deck is referred to as the Sidewalk. It features the closed-in spaces of the modern ships, but with guest-focused spaces midship with large seating areas for sailors to hang out on both the port and starboard side. While the port side also features an outdoor patio for the pizza place. The forward end of the Sidewalk features added space to take in the ocean, and while the bow is not accessible, the passageway connects the two sides around the front, with the aft ends connecting to the dock. This allows guests to take full laps around the ship on deck number 7. Then the next area, kind of gone through and explained a lot about what went on in Bimini, how the place operates, but let's take a look at some of the actual areas and how the place is laid out. When you head straight out to sea from Miami, you'll run into the Bimini Islands. Not known as a cruise destination, these small islands have a population of less than 2,000. The main destination located on North Bimini Island is the Resorts World Bimini. Occupying 750 acres of the island, it built a large pier to make accessing the resort easier. Virgin Voyages has partnered with Resorts World to build a larger beach club and utilize their pier to make visits to the island. Every Virgin Voyages sailing to the Caribbean makes a stop at the beach club. On days a ship is in port, Resorts World operates transportation to get sailors between the pier and the beach club, but the entire beach club is exclusive to Virgin Voyages and operated solely by the ship's crew. The resort is laid out in a symmetrical design with guests entering through the main house in the center. This is where Sailor Services is ready to provide assistance with any needs guests may have, along with required services such as medical needs. You'll also find the lounge, an area to hang out, play some games, or simply relax. Continuing into the resort, the center path divides the pair of massive lagoon pools. Both are surrounded by a variety of chairs, along with some loungers in the water. The North Lagoon is capped by the DJ stand, bringing a high energy, while the South Lagoon is accented by the Lagoon Bar with its swing chairs over the water. While the Lagoon Bar serves the South Lagoon, the Beach Bar is located between the beach and the North Lagoon to serve that end of the resort with an identical menu of drink selections. At the very ends of the resort are the beach eats venues. These areas, with a variety of tables under a mix of trees, covering, and open sun, provide plenty of seating options for sailors to dine. While the serving areas each feature 4 counters where you can order the dishes you'd like and have a server assemble a tray for you to take. If you visit early in the day, you may even catch the pig roast that takes place to prepare the food for serving later. While you can get complimentary sodas from either of the bars, both Beach Eats venues also features a self-service drink station for added ease. In the back corners of the beach club, you'll find a secluded sandy area, with the north end being the court, an open location to play games in the sand, while the south end is the hideaway, a quiet location for relaxation and meditation. Along the ocean front, there is plenty of sand for sailors to spread out with a variety of loungers and options, including shaded umbrellas and even covered sunbeds. The focal point of the beach is the trio of fireballs located at the north, south, and center of the beach area for sailors to gather around in the evening. Those looking for an Instagrammable spot will find it at the swings in the ocean. While there is no shortage of seats, if you're looking for something with your name on it and a little more pampering, the resort has a large number of cabanas located throughout. This allows sailors to pick the location and vibe they want, with Grove cabanas secluded in the back of the resort, lagoon cabanas with easy pool access, and beach cabanas located at the back of the beach area. For Rockstar sailing with Virgin, the old beach club venue was converted into the Rockstar Retreat. This area, located at the south end, provides comfortable seating under a roof with a private bar area, a patio to sit out in the sun, and an exclusive Rockstar Cabana area right in front of the retreat. After the beautiful sunset off the coast, the beach club takes on a new life as the dynamic lighting turns on to set a whole new ambience from the overhead lighting, accent lighting, and even the pool lighting. So that is the end of this sailing, the first of our back-to-back sailing. Tonight we got a paper in the cabin giving us information about how tomorrow's going to operate. We have to be meeting at about 10:30 to depart the ship, check back in and get back on the ship. And then it seems like from 11 till about 2 in the afternoon, about 3 hours, we'll be the only people on the ship. The new guests will not be arriving until 2 o'clock. So that is something that seems a little unique to Virgin, and it'll be really interesting to see what that'll be like tomorrow. I think that'll be very neat to have this entire ship to yourself. It's something that you often see on those back-to-back days, but I don't think it's ever 3 hours long. That is definitely a long time to have the ship all to yourself. So be sure to come back tomorrow. Once again, I'm Derek Cohn. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the links.